Paulin, you are the founder and CEO of Drivy. And you, Marc, the Corporate and Legal Affairs Director for Microsoft. So with BlaBlaCar and Drivy, for instance, citizens, as you, are now able to share and rent their own car. For governments, this poses the questions on tax systems. With Airbnb and Uber, there are also questions about labor law or data privacy. Paulin, maybe you can help us define exactly which laws may be obsolete in today's evolving business world. What forces have made this law obsolete?
Okay, so for Drivy, we are categorized in the sharing economy, and there is a lot of confusion about what is the sharing economy. And I think there are two separate things. The first one is sharing goods that already exist, so like sharing your car to recoup with the cost. And the second category is more the on-demand economy, the Uberization of the economy, and this is more new marketplaces putting in relation workers with people. And these two different sectors have two different consequences on the law. The first one, the sharing economy, is about what is the limit between sharing for cost compensation and work. So this is the first domain where we have to update the law. And the second one, the on-demand economy, is more a question about what is labor, the fixed long-term work contract in an economy that becomes increasingly made of freelance people who are either precarious or free, the way you see it. It could change a lot in the way labor works. So these are the two domains for Drivy.
Marc.
Yes.
What steps can be taken to ensure that laws in the future match the ever-accelerating pace of business? But you don't answer my question, because I want to know which laws may be obsolete in today's evolving business world for you. Which one?
So the laws of how do you declare your revenue, so it's more the fiscal law, and then the other part of the law on labor is what status, if you make some money working a part-time job on an internet platform, what status should you have? What contract should you have? If you don't have any contract and you are depending from algorithm, what kind of law should we create to make it fair? Like we saw with Uber that there is a lawsuit in the US to requalify the workers from freelancers to
a vacuum.
Exactly. So this is the part of the law that could become obsolete.
And you, Marc, what kind of law is obsolete for you? Is the law obsolete or is just a vacuum?
I don't know if the law is obsolete. For me, the most important is to start with the principle. Because the principle, which is a hard law, is really something which is not changing. And the question is how to implement the principle when we look at the innovation, when we see at the speed of the innovation. And the real question is not to consider the obsolescence of the law, but how we implement efficiently the principle. Because the principle, most of the time, allows to have innovation meeting not only the market, but also the consumer. If you look at privacy, if you look at the protection of workers, of human dignity, most of these principles that are universal are the principles that consumer and citizen expect from the business to respect. And then the question you have is to implement it in an agile way to meet the fast and the speed of the innovation. And this is really the challenge we have today, how to implement this principle. And I would suggest one methodology, if I may.
Yes.
Here. One is to start from the principle to a collaborative regulation. It means that the regulators should first anticipate what the business is doing, meet the business, listen to the business, and build with the business what could be the answer for the future. This is a sort of soft law based on the hard principle. And beyond the soft law, you can add the self-regulation. Because a company, a new entity, a startup, or a big company could decide to add requirements just to meet the expectation of the citizen, of the consumer. And this is a way of compete to introduce some self-regulation based on the principle. This is why I think we we don't have to oppose innovation and regulation. Innovation could be accountable, and regulation should be innovative. And this is where we have to move now from the situation we are.
Is it possible to move?
Yes, of course.
With,
yes, of
for
course.
example, the Loi Le Maire, what do you think about it?
It's a very good law, I'm sure, but I don't know it yet. What I know is that we will have an open consultation of the draft. I would suggest one idea to the minister. Maybe not to regulate everything through the law, but to put in place what the French Constitution allows, which is a right to experiment. There is one article, the Article 37.1, which stipulates that the government can, through the law or a decree, experiment some solution. And it would be super useful to go this way, to try to see what works, what doesn't work for a period of time, and then decide what's the real and efficient regulation, allowing the innovation, allowing the growth of the ecosystem, and meeting the expectation of citizen and consumer towards the principle.
But I would like to know what, in concrete measures, what steps can be taken to ensure that law in the future match the ever-accelerating pace of business, because there is a different scale.
Well, first, I don't think that the law has to go so fast. I think that the law has to lag behind the pace of business. It's not the goal for me to have lawmakers on every new field of business when it's still small. So I think we have to accept that the law is obsolete, because the goal of the law is to make principles that hold in time and that doesn't have to catch up every month on the latest innovation that will maybe fade out a bit later. And I mean, my answer would be very classical to say that the important is that the people making the law have to talk to the people in business. And honestly, in our sector of the sharing economy, it's really happening. So we've had contacts with the Senate, with Assemblée Nationale, with the European deputies. We've been really consulted, invited to discuss. So I must say, I think it's working fine, actually.
Yeah, I agree.
But
I agree.
But you do not agree also.
No, I agree. Why? Because what Paulin explained is a collaborative regulation I mentioned. We are in a time that we should first anticipate and listen. And when you talk about the National Assembly or the Senate, it works also for the regulators. It could be the Data Privacy Authority, it could be the Competition Authority, it could be the Telco Authority. And the idea is that there is a time to listen, to have this interaction with the business, will allow us to have the relevant regulation, allowing innovation and meeting the expectation of the principle. This is a new way to create regulation and law. And you know, Winston Churchill said, I'm sorry, but to quote Winston Churchill, he said, if you have thousands of law, you miss the respect of law.
That could be the moral of the debate. But last question. How may small businesses compete with bigger businesses equipped with vast legal resources, which effectively help to sculpt the legal landscape? This is the kind of opposition between you, because you have to...
Okay, so I'll play the game of
to compete a little bit, because you are the little Drivy and you are the big Microsoft, so...
Well,
Yeah.
I think the legal field is actually a big competitive advantage for startups. So your question kind of means, okay, they have more lawyers and everything, so we cannot fight. But actually, the big point is when you are a startup, your only focus is how can I become 10 times bigger next year? So it's more a probabilistic approach. You don't really care about what you can lose. You get focused on what you can win. So then, of course, you need lawyers to study how to go there. But you don't really have to take into account what happens if you lose. When you are a big corporation, obviously, you're already rich. You already have a lot of savings, so you cannot lose them. So each time you make a new move, you have to consider, okay, what can I win, but what can I lose as well? So I think for startups, it's much easier because we can sacrifice a bit of risk for the objective of becoming 10 times bigger. And we can see it because we raised money 3 times. In the first rounds of fundraising, our investors, they didn't really care about the legal due diligence. They knew that there were a lot of doubts, that we had to work on it, obviously, but they didn't really care. In the latest fundraising, the amounts were starting to be bigger, and the part of the legal due diligence really became bigger. We had to start being concerned, so we are starting to be bigger and to feel a bit the drag of the legal constraints.
So happy you are, and just killing our jobs, but just maybe 1 or 2 ideas to help the startups that have some concern, in fact, with the law. I would suggest 2 ways. One, which is very simple, and everyone knows this way, is to work through business association. It's a way through a network to get the support from association, and there is a lot in France about software like Avdel or Syntec, and they can provide you some support. This is one way. And the second way is more a call to action for the legal community. I think that the legal community, and in particular the law firm, could take a part of a pro bono activity to support the startup. And it's
Accepted.
Accepted. But, I would like to give you one example.
Let's deal it now.
And
Check your hand.
And I give you one concrete example, which is one law firm which is called Auguste et de Bouzy, and they have launched 3 years ago, I think, a beauty contest which is called Start You Up, and the 3 startups that are chosen get a support from the law firm on their business. And I think that I'm inviting the legal community to be more involved and to get the growth hacker culture to be part of this new regulation landscape.
Okay, great. So I would like to conclude and just say that when we talk about law, maybe it is important to remember to give to regulators whatever time they need. Do you agree with that?
Well, whatever. I mean, of course, you have to catch up at some point, especially. But I think the priority has to be where the money is. So the regulators should be here to bring back as much tax money as possible and focus on the industries that are already mature. So ours is maybe not the priority.
Obsolete laws are sometimes better than new but inefficient laws.
Sorry, I miss...
Obsolete laws are sometimes better than new but inefficient laws.
Yeah,
you agree
right.
with that? So this is the sentence of Churchill. So
yeah, and what is super important? Back to the principle to avoid inefficient laws.
Okay, thank you both. A big round of applause for them. Thank you.